Hello. So today, for this video, I'm going to show you a couple little tips and tricks for factoring. But before I do that, I did want to touch on the fact that I do want you to make sure you watch this video as well on finding factors of a number that's on Khan. I will see if you skipped over it. So please, it is part of your grade that you actually watch that all the way through. And then you have two assignments today, factor pairs and identifying factors. So make sure you do both of those. And then also remember that when you get into the assignment, if you do not know how to do or know how to choose an answer. So for example, it says, which of the following are factor pairs for 12? So obviously on your piece of paper, that's where you're going to factor your 12. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a trick for this. So pull this over here because you don't need to do this. Obviously, you can just have it pulled up on your screen, but you should have a piece of paper and a pencil out because you always want to make sure you're working these problems out on a piece of paper or piece of paper and using a pencil or dry erase marker and dry erase board. So we do not want to just guess our factors. We want to make sure that we're factoring out the whole number so that we can choose the best answer here. Sorry, let's switch it up for just a second. Hey, try this again, see if it'll refocus. I apologize. All right, come on, camera. You can do it. I believe in you. This has a little trouble focusing sometimes. All right, I think it's good now. All right, so if we have the number 12, so I'm going to put the number 12 on my piece of paper here, right? So a little trick that I want to show you guys is when you factor out your numbers. Factor Rainbow really is my favorite thing to use, but I also have something called Factor Tree that I've used in the past where you could branch your factors off of the 12, but that gets a little dicey. So we're just going to go ahead and keep using Factor Rainbow. So we have 1. We always start with 1 and the number itself. So we got 1 and 12. That looks like a wonky 12. Rewrite that. Always start with 1 and the number itself. Then I'm going to go ahead and make the next arch. I'm going to say to myself, okay, is this an even number? So you look at the ones place, is 2 an even number? An even number is always 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. So if the number ends in any of these, that means that it is even. So therefore 2, yes, has to be a factor. So anytime their ones place has a 0, a 2, a 4, 6, an 8 in it, that means that 2 is a factor. Then all you have to do as a little trick, just to tell you guys, is you just take whatever number you're working with, 2 times whatever you're looking for here is actually just half of the number. So all you have to do is break it in half. Sometimes with bigger numbers that can be a little challenging. You can do all kinds of stuff. You could draw out the number and then break them into 2 even groups. Or you should, by 4th grade, just know that 2 times 6 is definitely 12. Also, another way is using your multiplication chart. So going to the 2, going over to the 12, up, and you'd find that 6 right there. So you have a lot of different ways that you can figure these out. So just sitting there and doing nothing is not okay. Then we're going to move on. So I'm going to tell you a little trick about the number 3. I have no idea why, but this is actually just something that I picked up on when I was in 5th grade when I was doing factoring because you guys are doing it earlier than whenever I was a kid. But anyway, this was something I picked up on. So listen carefully. I have no idea why it works. I just know it works. If you take the number, so if we have the number 12, and you actually take the 2 digits and you add them together, you get 3, right? So if I take 1 and 2 and I add it together, I get 3. If that number, when you add it together, is either 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. If it adds up to any of these numbers, that means 3 is a factor. It could actually go on. If it adds up to any number that you could skip count by 3s and get, then 3 is a factor. And then all you have to do is count 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means that 3 times 4 is 12 because you skip counted 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So skip counting comes in handy quite a bit when it comes to factoring and multiplication. So that's a little trick for you. I'm going to tell you another trick. First of all, when we get to the very next number, so say I'm on, after 3 comes 4. Well, 4 is over here, therefore we know this factor rainbow is done. So when we get to the next number, if we get to 4 and it's already on here, then you're done. Okay? If I were factoring those, say the number 16, okay, then I would, oh, sorry, let's go back to this real quick. So it says choose all that apply. So is 2 and 4 a factor? No. 2 and 4 are factors, but 2 times 4 does not equal 12. So that's what this is looking for. It's asking about factor pairs. So when we're talking about factor pairs, we're talking about the two numbers that connect on your factor rainbow. So factor pairs would be 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. So that's the other thing to keep in mind and be careful of. You want to make sure when you're reading the directions, factor pairs. So 2 and 4 are factors of 12, but they're not the factor pairs. So we know that 1 and 12 because the 1 and the 12 connect on the factor rainbow. And we know 2 and 6 are also factor pairs because they connect on the rainbow. 3 and 5 are not. 5's not even a factor. And then 3 and 4 are factors, pairs. So choose all answers that apply. That's the other thing to pay attention to here. So just wanted to touch base about that too. Then you click your check. Correct. Next question. All right. Now, this one says a rectangle has an area of 81 square centimeters. Which of the following could be the rectangle's length and width? Well, this seems kind of confusing, right? No, it's not. All it is is a factoring question. So let me show you what this is. They're just trying to get fancy with you guys. So don't get overwhelmed by a question like this. Let me turn my paper around here. It's all it is a factoring question. Because area has to do with length times width. It's just a multiplication problem. So nothing fancy. You just take your number just like you have before, put it at the top. We got 81. We're going to ignore the square centimeters part, right? So you guys got a little heads up on the assignment since you're listening to the learning video like everybody's supposed to be doing. So you have the number 81 and we're going to factor it out. So we're not even going to worry about the answers right now. We're just going to factor it out. So I'm going to factor rainbow this bad boy. So we always start with 1 and the number, right? Then we go ahead and make our next search. Well, can 2 be a factor? Is the ones place a 0, a 2, a 4, a 6, or an 8? No, it's not. So 2 cannot be a factor because it's not even. It is not even. Okay. Then let's see if 3 is a factor. Let's see. If I take 8 and 1, 8 plus 1, it equals 9. So 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15 are our rules. Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. 8 plus 1 equals 9. Therefore, 3, yes, is a factor. Now we just have to decide 3 times what equals 81. I'm going to tell you right now, using your multiplication chart that I linked on right here for ya is the best route for this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull it up. It's okay to use that right now, guys. We haven't studied enough about multiplication and division facts to be able to do these big numbers like this. So I'm just going to go to the multiplication chart. Remember how I taught you. Go to the 3 right here. And then we're going to move over. But guess what? Can we find the 81? No, we cannot. So I'm going to teach you a different trick. Make sure that we can't go this way either. No, we cannot. That's okay. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're just going to look at this chart and we're going to look and see, can we find 81 anywhere on this chart? I don't think we're going to be able to. So that's okay. That's why I'm doing this with you guys, so that I can show you the different ways to investigate. Ooh, that's not wanting to erase, is it? I'm showing you those different ways to investigate this type of problem. So it's okay that we can't find it there. So let's go back here And this is what we're going to decide. You guys ready? So all we're going to do is say, okay, 81, 3 times what is 81? So I'm just going to start with 10. So 3 times 10. Well, we know 3 times 10 is 30, so that isn't big enough. I'm going to pull that multiplication chart back up. We also know that all the way to 3 times 20 is still only 60. So I'm actually going to skip to 3 times 20 is 60. And then I'm going to try 3 times 30. Well, I know 3 times 3 is 9. Tackle my 0. That's too far. So now we're just going to keep trying different things. So if I say 3 times 20, let's try, well, I know 22. Let's try 22 because I know that 60 was pretty close, but 30 was too far. So 22, let's try it. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 2 is 6. Nope, that's not far enough. Let's do 25. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 more is 75. Nope, not big enough. We're just going to keep on trying. 20, I'm going to skip to 27. Try that one. 3 times 7 is 21. How would I know all these facts? Because I have my multiplication chart right there. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 more is 8. Ding, ding, ding. We hit the jackpot. We know that 3 times 27 is 81. You guys get that? Okay. So now we're going to say, can 4 be a factor? So 4, I'll tell you right now, cannot be a factor if 2 is not a factor. 4 cannot be a factor if 2 is not a factor. Can 5 be a factor? No. 5 can only be a factor if it ends in 0 or 5. So we know 5 is not a factor. Can 6 be a factor? Let's try it. So 6 can only be a factor if you can take whatever you multiply times 27 and you can take that and break it in half. But let's check the multiplication chart just to be sure. So I'm going to get my pen out here, go to the 6, and then I'm going to go across and see if I can get to 81. So I got to 78, and then it skips to 84. So I know that no, 6 cannot be a factor. So I'm going to try 7. So I'm going to go to 7. I'm going to try to see if I can get to 81. It goes from 77 to 84. So no, 7 cannot be a factor. Can 8 be a factor? I'm going to go to my 8, and then I'm going to go all the way until I can get to 81. I get to 80, and it skips to 88. So no, 8 cannot be a factor. So you'll notice that it just keeps going. Now I'm at 9. And 9, I go all the way across to see if I can get to 81. And boom, there it is. 81, so it goes straight up. And I know that 9 times 9 equals 81. Some of you probably already knew that because you know your multiplication facts, but 9 times 9. So I now know that 9 times 9, 3 times 27, and 1 times 81. There can't be any more factors because once you repeat yourself, you're done with your factor rainbow and you close your little clouds off there. All right, so now we're going to go back to this problem that seemed a little crazy because I'm like, what? I've never done area perimeter. What's a square centimeter? I have no idea, Mrs. Smith. Well, guess what, guys? It doesn't matter. All it's asking for here is what are the factor pairs. So we know that 9 times 9 is a factor pair. We know that 7 times 12 is not one of them. We know that 1 times 81 is one of them, and we know that 3 times 27 is one of them because of our work that we did to pair those up. Here's another thing, guys, and I should have said this in the beginning. Instead of going through all of this work, that was a little nonsense for me, right? What should I have done? Well, I should have just looked at what was on the computer screen. It was either 7 times 12 or 27 times 3. And since I knew for sure that 3 was a factor, I didn't even need that, and I could have just wrote 27 up there. So I didn't even need to know how to do all this multiplication. By process of elimination and just using the problem, I should have known that 3 times 27 is but you do want to check, so that is another thing to be thinking about, is checking your work. And I get it. Some of you might not know how to do some of this yet. You might not know how to do this multiplication, or you might know or remember a little bit, but maybe you're just not that strong with it yet. That's okay. That's why using the multiplication chart, that's why we're learning how to do some of this still. That's why we're practicing it still. That's why whenever I go to give you like a quiz, the actual quiz at the end of the week, I'm not going to give you numbers that are that big in order for you to have to know some of those bigger facts. But right now, I want to push you on some of these assignments, so that's why you have some of these numbers that are bigger. But I don't want you to get tricked up by something like this where you're given things like centimeters and square centimeters. Just worry about the numbers for these assignments. Again, don't forget with Khan that you can click on the watch a video or get a hint. So it actually shows you a learning video here, or you can click get a hint and it helps you, tells you how to break it down. You can get another hint, it breaks it down again for you, and so on and so forth. So don't forget that you have those tools available to you. And if you need help even more, then tune into math at 10:15 on Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. All right, guys, have an awesome day. Thanks for listening all the way